Welcome to Intuitive Seek. My name is Mary Treen, and as an intuitive guide, energy healer, and meditation teacher, I aim to bring you a grounded approach to all things energy and intuition. Everything I share is with the hope to help you remember how your unique power of intuition is your own greatest teacher. Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to the middle of November. How have you been? How has the month been for you? How was October? For me, it was very busy in a great way until the last 2 days of October, and I got a cold, and it wasn't too bad, but it really made me check my energy and how much I had to give. And I've been so fortunate to be busy in my work and in my practice. And I just didn't have the space to record November energy impressions. And every time I went, even though I didn't have a ton of energy, I would go to my computer, get it all set up, ready to meditate, ready to give the impressions, and it just wouldn't come. Just didn't feel right. And because of the depth of connection that I really practice to have with my intuition, with my inner guidance, I knew I couldn't push. I knew if I pushed it, if I just went for it and gave the impressions that I could get or could receive just to have a November episode, that would be counterintuitive. That would go against the grain of all of the intentions that I have for this podcast, which is to listen, to help you remember to listen to yourself, to find the answers within, to not be pushed by outside forces of shoulds and expectations and conditioning if you don't need to. Sometimes we do. So I took it as a signal. I took it as a sign that perhaps the first 2 weeks of November are really meant for us to kind of turn off the outside noise. And I know that's been difficult because there have been a lot of things happening, as always, but more than most in the first 2 weeks of November. But I did. I took it as a sign that if I didn't have anything to share, then I shouldn't share. And that may seem so obvious. That may seem like, oh, no kidding. But, and I share this in case any of you also have this kind of default mechanism. I have a big perfectionist energy, but it can come up and take over. And so that perfectionism was really glaring when I was not putting out the podcast. Even though I didn't have space for it and there was nothing coming to share when I did try to make space for it, I was still feeling like I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I kept having to go back to my heart and that perfectionism that really is just fear. And any of that fear that I find, I try to give it love. Because that's, for me, most of the time, that's what I need when I am fearing something, when I am worried, anxious, feeling less than. It's fear of not being enough. And I know many of us have this. So I am glad that I listened to my intuition, that I took care of my physical body, my physical health, that I didn't push it, that I was able to recover from a little cold and not have to stop everything. And I was able to remember that love and compassion that I need, and that my value is not based on what I do. And I know I'm not alone in that one. That has kind of been conditioned by society for all of us. Look at all the shiny things I've made. Doesn't this give me so much worth? But if the intention is to feel valued and worthy, there's no foundation there when there isn't anything being made or done. So I have been making sure that my foundation of worth and love within myself is healthy too. But then something very cool happened because I really started to think, oh, maybe there just isn't anything more to share. Maybe Intuitive Seek has run its course. So I just gave myself that time to wait and see. But then yesterday, I got the inspiration. It came, and I was surprised because it was actually more work, quote unquote, but it made me so lit up inside, and it felt fresh and new and right on time. And it felt like, oh, this is what I was waiting for. This is why the monthly wasn't working. This is why it would only have worked if I pushed and went at it with the intention that is, as I said, completely counterintuitive on how I want to show up with this podcast. And the inspiration was, and you may have already seen it because it was in the title, but the inspiration was, oh, it's a weekly energy impression. Shorter, more succinct, more of a dip into inspiration to remember your intentions each week, a bit of a message, a bit of guidance, insight, and some soul questions, intuitive journal prompts. And I used to do this with my newsletter, but then that wasn't feeling right anymore at the end of last year. And now I see and feel that it's time for the podcast to carry that. It helps to anchor me for the week. I already do this for myself. And why I wasn't sharing it, I guess it just wasn't time. And then I looked, and my very first energy impression episode was November 2021. And I love the timing that now the shift in energy impressions to weekly energy impressions every Monday, the start of kind of the work week. I know in Canada, we start our week on Sunday, but for me, Sunday always feels like the last day of the week. So it really feels right to put these episodes out on Monday. And here we are, November 2024, 3 years later. It's beautiful to look back at 3 years of this podcast, the evolution, the support it has given me, the intense education on how to show up authentically, meaning, just like I spoke about at the beginning, to go back and forth on constantly learning not to do things based on the expectation. So I'm committing to showing up here every Monday with a nice snapshot of the energy of the week ahead on how you can harness it, be inspired by it, bring more intention to your week. And this feels right because the time, the time is moving by so quickly. And I know that that is something that happens as we get older. There's more time, so things feel like less time. But I really also feel that time is going by so quickly. Since 2020, it has shifted. It feels fast. So why not anchor in every Monday, connect with the energy impressions, or whenever you listen to them, of course, trust your intuition. And then I'll do at least one other episode of Intuitive Seek each month, focused on an intuitive topic, intuitive development, stories, sharing about energy healing, all things intuition from that grounded place that I really cherish and love. And anchoring into sharing every Monday really feels like that foundation that will allow me to kind of open up the space more to receive the inspiration for what I really feel called to share. So a little bit of a shift, a little bit of a change. So I hope by sharing kind of the process of it, it will give you a bit more insight into maybe the permission that you haven't given yourself to change your mind, switch things up, move things around, check in and make sure that your intentions are still there and that it hasn't evolved or morphed into expectation. And that's one of the main reasons of why we do want to connect to our intuition, our inner guidance, that compass, that beautiful, perfect teacher that we all carry, the greatest teacher, our inner oracle, guru, all the words. To know that when we feel the need to change, that we allow ourselves to because we trust that guidance, that we're not looking all around us, everywhere except for inside for that direction. So thank you to everyone who listens, who supports this podcast and my work, because you help me remember that too. Because we're all on this journey together. So let's dive into the energy impressions for the week of November 18th, 2024. What do we need to know, remember, connect with, and focus on? Now, for anyone new to the energy impressions, I go into a nice meditation with the intention to gain clarity on what we need to remember, know, and focus on. And that comes in the form of ideas, symbolism, and animals. And then I share some questions that you can use as journal prompts, or you can answer them as a voice note to yourself. Just more ways to ground and connect with yourself. New ways to get in to your intuition, to start to gain more clarity on how your intuition speaks to you, the language of it. Now, everything that I share, as always, is from my experience. So take what resonates, take what you need, and then leave the rest. Listening to these energy impressions is an act of intuitive development because you get to trust your knowing whether something is for you or not. So really trust what you feel and what you know as you listen. All right. So this week, as I moved into my meditation, right away, I was reminded of kintsugi, of the Japanese art of putting back together pottery, mostly in tea ceremony, with gold or silver. Mostly gold is the tradition, I believe. And I wanted to give just a little bit of background on that. There is no main shore founded historic beginning of kintsugi. The traditional kintsugi became popular in the mid 16th century by a Japanese tea master, and that established the really beautiful, minimalist, gorgeous aesthetic of wabi-sabi, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And it generally means beauty in simplicity. And the kintsugi began to inspire that, and then combined, it became that Japanese philosophy of wabi-sabi, which promotes deriving value from imperfection and impermanence. And isn't that so beautiful? Because everything I just shared with you at the beginning of this about perfectionism and deriving value from doing and being, that was after my meditation. And I didn't actually consciously put that together, that it was connected to the energy impression. So I love how that works out. Another, beautiful message around not deriving your value from perfection and everything being the same all the time. So for this week, really looking at what inspires feelings of worth and value. Maybe even connecting to what are your core values? And maybe recognizing what aspects of yourself, what needs to be brought back into view. Not that you are broken, but there may be aspects of yourself, who you are, what you want to do, what you need to say that are hidden. So can you be inspired by that art of putting these pieces of yourself back together? And maybe it is your values, what you really know to be true and important for yourself, that helps to fuse them together. Maybe what you've learned from all the difficulties and challenges you've been through, that gold out of the wound. Is that putting those pieces of yourself back together? This week, can you discover the gold that you have gained, the metaphorical gold that has helped you remember and reclaim and reunite the aspects of yourself that are really ready to be seen and shared and expressed? And it may help to connect to what happens within your body, but also what you think of when you kind of think about gold. When you connect to gold, does it inspire you? Does it make you feel like you don't have anything? You don't have enough? Does it put you into that lack? Or does it put you into a feeling of fullness and value? And that brings it back to this week of connecting to value. What are your values? What is truly valuable in your life? And how can they help you connect those pieces of yourself back together in your awareness? Because they're not separate from you. I know that to be true. but they can feel separate when we don't honor them and allow them to be those parts of ourselves that just are. And then 2 animals came into my meditation for this week: the sloth and the bear. Both fuzzy, very different sizes. Fuzzy mean, furry, very soft animals, not a reptile. And both having those big claws. Now, the sloth, right away, as I tuned into it, obviously, they are slow. So connecting to our pace, slowing down. I could really see a sloth going across the road and a car coming, but the sloth not moving fast. And this didn't feel like a dangerous place. It felt like the car would stop, but it felt like the knowledge, the insight was move slowly this week, despite external pressures or worry or fear. To trust your pace, to don't rush to match those around you. That rushing for anything this week could really not be helpful. That when we feel the need to rush forward, rush towards, that is a sign for us to slow down and connect with what we need, our intentions, what we are wanting to do, why we feel like we need to rush, all of those things. And that can be difficult this time of year. This is a rushing time. So that sloth inspiration, that sloth guidance is really helping us remember, let's go at our own pace. If it's slow, it needs to be slow. But this also feels like another reminder of moving beyond seeking external validation. Because one of the reasons we would rush at the pace of others is because we feel like we need to match that, to be valued, to be right. So a really great message for this week that I feel is to slow down where you need to really pay attention to when you're feeling the need to rush forward. And another message for that could be in conversation, when you rush to answer or rush to make someone feel better if they told you something that wasn't super positive. Like, are you rushing to share or are you rushing to speak? Are you rushing to make them feel better, or are you rushing because you're feeling uncomfortable and you want to soothe their fears or worry because you don't want to feel fear or worry? And the only way for us to be really aware of that is to slow down in our reactions. Now, another thing I thought of with the sloth is one of the 7 deadly sins, and usually defined as being, lazy and lack of effort. And I looked it up, and the word sloth comes from the Latin acedia or acadia. I guess I didn't look up how to pronounce it, but one of you knows, so one of those hopefully is correct. I guess I could look it up, but I'm trying not to edit these too much anymore as well. So let's just move on. Acedia, acadia. Sloth in Latin means without care. So does being slow when everyone else is rushing around you, does being slow actually mean without care? Or could it be a way for us to be reminded that slowing down, not rushing to speak or do, actually means we have more care? Does it actually take more effort to slow down? For many of us, yes. So, a reminder this week to be intentional with our space and movements and actions. And it could also be a reminder to release the judgment that we have of others around us who maybe are not keeping the pace that we like or the timing. Release our judgment, and then also release any judgment we feel we are receiving from others that do not like our timing or our pace. What is slothful to one may be intentional and take more effort to another. So, really focusing on what feels right to you. And this sloth animal, their way of life, reminds us to prioritize our mental and physical health and emotional health by taking the time to go the pace that we need so that honors our energy, but also because of the sloth being in the trees, remember to get grounded. Embrace a grounded, slower, more intentional pace for this week ahead. And I really love that message. It makes so much sense for what I have been connecting to and how I've been hearing others that I've been connecting with and working with. It is a great time to connect back to our pace, to our energy, to our rhythm. And then another bonus animal for this week, because even the monthly energy impressions, almost always it's just one animal, but it feels like, well, this is the inaugural week ahead. So I love that a second animal has shown up for us. So the second animal being the bear. And right away, I always connect to honey with the bear because all bears love honey. And honey is a reminder of our inner desire for the sweetness of life, but the natural sweetness of life. And the fact that honey and bees, their hives are usually in trees. So again, more grounded connection and opening up to the value. What else is honey? It's gold. So that honey connection to that Japanese art of putting the broken pieces back together, to honoring the imperfection, that the imperfection and the impermanence and the changing, that the value and the sweetness that can be derived from that, that really feels like something that we need to remember. And then the other piece of the bear that I was reminded of, that the black bear, during hibernation in the winter sleep, their kidneys actually shut down and then come back. And metaphysically, I've read that the kidneys are symbols of discernment and discrimination, and they can also represent fear. Holding fear, especially in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, in body mapping, the kidneys hold fear. So this really feels like, again, another reflection for this week ahead to really connect to any fear and give that fear love and care and compassion. Don't try to just shake it away or ignore it. I'm always reminded with fear that my love needs to be bigger than it. My courage needs to be bigger. But fear doesn't have to be anything that stops us. It can be a reminder of what we need. So the bear this week is reminding us of what we may need, whether it is discernment, and that really connects to the whole message of this week, which is connect to your intention, connect to your rhythm, connect to what you're doing Make sure that it is you doing it and not based on expectation or everyone else around you. And another great reminder to make sure that you're grounding your energy so that you can really more easily connect to your intention and what you need and what your rhythm is. Because if we're not grounded, it may be and feel impossible to connect to any of that. So the overarching message usually is, but definitely this week, get grounded, connect to your rhythm, connect to the value that you have from your imperfection and impermanence. Be aware of seeking that external validation. Connect to value from within and make sure that any of those parts of yourself that feel like they may have splintered or broken off or been hidden away, that your innate value, that gold within, is there waiting to fuse those parts back together and help them be seen again. So this week, a few questions that you could answer in a journal or in a voice note to yourself. As I said, one of them could be, what gold, metaphorical gold, have you discovered within yourself? What helps you reclaim and reunite or express those hidden parts of yourself? What is the gold? And really trust what comes. You may be surprised. And another question could be, where in your life do you need to slow down? Where do you feel that you are rushing? Where do you feel like you are running out of time? And how can you become more intentional with your space and your movements and your actions? In the third question, really felt like we should connect more to the honey, the sweetness of life. So the third question could be, what are you not seeing that is incredibly beneficial in your life? What are you not honoring? What are you not valuing that is actually offering you so much goodness and sweetness? What is there that you just haven't paid attention to? And again, it may surprise you. Just really allow yourself to feel what your intuition already knows and listen with all of your senses so you can really translate what your intuition is trying to tell you. And right now, your intuition may be saying, answer that question. Maybe 1 out of 3. Maybe it's all 3. But really trust what resonates and leave the rest. All right. So, yes, given you quite a bit of food for thought for this week ahead. And some of the episodes will be shorter, some will be longer, some will have one animal, some will have a few. But I hope you join me every Monday or whenever you listen to this. If it hasn't been at the beginning of your week, trust that it found you exactly when you needed it. And thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuitive Seek. I would love if you resonated with the energy that I'm feeling for this week ahead. Connect with me at the end of the week, see if anything really stuck out to you. I love to hear from you. And if you have any thoughts or questions, please do not hesitate to send me a message through my website. That is treenlight.com or through my Instagram at treenlight.healing. And of course, if you're curious about working with me and how I can support you with intuitive energy healing, connect with me through the links in my show notes. All of the links are there that you can explore. And yes, hugely appreciate if wherever you subscribe, you find the podcast, you follow the show. And if you feel called to give any support, it would be amazing if you shared this episode with a friend or if you left a review. That really helps other people find it. So thank you again and be kind to yourself. And I will talk to you next week.
Hi, Auntie Mary. I just wanted to say something very, very mean. Cat.